Welcome to Running in the 70s, where we interview, meet, and get to know athletes of all kind who were running in the 70s. I'm your host, Matthew Kleinowski. Just a quick reminder, if you've been listening to these podcasts, that they're also recorded in video. You can see them easily on YouTube or click the video link on Spotify and the other podcast platforms. Today on the podcast, we have a key figure in Canadian Masters athletics, somebody who started in the 70s barely, and if you've ever run World Masters Athletics or any event in Ontario or Canada, this guy might have a photo of you. Somebody that's involved up through yesterday was timing for kids, still intricately involved in the sport, has a trophy named after him for the championship of Masters Athletics here in Ontario. Welcome on the podcast, Doug Shaggy Smith. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Matthew.
Let's start with,
Nice to be here.
we'll see if this makes it in. You're called Shaggy, but you're not Shaggy anymore. For a long time, most people who have then seen you for a while, the dreadlocks are gone.
Yeah, I'm not so shaggy now. Not so shaggy. Yeah, at Bell Canada, we had nicknames for everybody on the crew, and this guy called me Shaggy because of my long straight hair. And then I subsequently got it locked about 15 years ago, and now I'm not so shaggy.
Yeah. Let's tell people your running origin story. How did you get involved? When, where, and why in running?
A lot of people might not know their own personal story, but I know exactly when I started running. And by running, I mean running a course that you've determined a course and timing it, having it timed. To me, that's like the essence of running. Of course, anybody can run out all the time. And mine started in the Rome Olympics were shown on CBC TV up in Sudbury in 60. And my dad and I and my twin brother were watching Bibi Kila win the marathon, right? We're barefoot. And I was so impressed. When you're a kid, you're running around, but you never actually try to run. And our block is about 800 meters, I've determined since then. I used to run around the block, and once in a while my dad would time me and stuff. So I actually started running then in elementary or 50s and 60s in elementary school. There was no running. And then in high school, the phys ed class, just the teacher who was assigned to it, who had nothing to do with phys ed, and he wanted to go for a smoke. So he just had us all run this course. I guess it was about 4K maybe. He just let it go out and he'd have a smoke and then we'd come back. Most of the guys would get out of sight of the school and then just take the shortcut across and wait, have a smoke themselves perhaps. But we would actually run it. A friend of mine and I would go on Saturdays and run the course on our own. So I was really into running, but there were no races or anything. There's no such thing as a race or any kind of direction at school. And then in university, I just got married and there was all kinds of stuff that kept me busy. But then in, I guess the running boom in 77, I was at the height of the running boom perhaps. And then I was always shy to get in. We were in an apartment and I was too shy, if you can believe it, to get in the elevator in shorts to go for a run. So we bought the house in 77 and then I had no excuses. So I started running in 77 where I started logging it. And that's how I started running. Then with the Masters, I went to out of town in Oshawa, Ontario Championships. And I took the GO train there and I couldn't figure out how to get back, but they were having their AGM after the thing. So I figured I'll go there and then I'll like hitch a ride. I'll say, hey, are you going back to Toronto? So I go there and then they're going, we need somebody for the board of directors. And somebody goes, how about this guy? And I'm like, what? So that was my introduction to Masters Administration, which I've been doing ever since. And that was in like 91.
Okay, let's go back to what the world was like then. The sport wasn't developed in the schools around.
Not in Sudbury.
Were you a fan? up through the late
Well,
70s of the Olympics? Were you still watching the Olympics? You watched
well,
Bakila in the nighttime and bare feet. Yeah.
yeah, not as much. No, I was real interested in running, just like
Yeah.
myself running and stuff.
Yeah. So
Still not a huge fan,
yeah.
watching it. If I'm watching the Olympics, I'm watching the officials and how they're doing things. I'm more interested in that.
Let's talk about the equipment and the shoes. Yeah. Some of us have had the experience of people yelling, what are you doing out here in your underwear and throwing beer cans on the roads? But you were in the city. What did you find running shoes were available? When did they become available to
Well,
you?
like I say, I didn't really start around here until 77. So then they had that blue Nike shoe. Everybody had it. Jim Fix, who wrote the book, I think was wearing them. So that's what I got. And my first marathon in 80, I think I ran in those. And equipment wise, there wasn't that much variety. I think I had one singlet.
Now, what was the state of Masters athletics when you got pointed a finger and got picked to be on the board? In terms of sport, that was 91.
Yeah.
So
75 is when they started the Masters movement, really, when a bunch of old Brit guys in Toronto had formed this Canadian running team or something it was called. And they had a competition with their friends back in England. And then they added a couple other countries wanted, hey, how about us? And then it developed into the first World Masters in 75 in Toronto. And then that progressed. And then by the time I got on, the Ontario Masters were always the biggest part of the Canadian Masters in those days, because we got a Ontario grant, which was a lottery grant, and it had to be spent on something in Ontario. So Ontario Masters had this grant, but the Canadian Masters wanted to get some of the cash. Anyway, that was a long story, and it turned out that Ontario Masters separated from the Canadian Masters. We took over the memberships and stuff, and then we got associated with Athletics Ontario, and now Canadian Masters is being associated with Athletics Canada. So we're getting to the point where things are what I wanted them to be all along.
yeah, it's an interesting evolution of all that administration and different developing organizations. I went to IUP in Indiana, Pennsylvania, and I've interviewed a lot of my teammates and competitors from there. And our coach, Ed Fry, I went to school right after he was here in 1975. He won the initial 10K. I'm trying to find the records. I think he lapped the field.
Oh, yeah.
He ran a 10K, won the World Masters. Not a big deal about it, but he came back to college as a world champion. That was pretty cool. What about your running? You went from interested in running, going ahead and boldly going out in public running, and 3 years later you ran a marathon. What kind of training were you doing from 77 to 80?
Oh, that was very informal. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was injured. I had plantar fasciitis the winter before the marathon, so I didn't do a whole lot of running. I ran 4:15 and did some walking in the middle there and stuff like that. I did most of my marathoning in the 80s, so I got down to 3 hours and 10 seconds, if you can believe it. Fate would have it that I can't say two something when I'm talking about my PB for the marathon, but I ran 3 times under 3:02. So I got very close sometimes, but it wasn't to be. But training always by myself, and I'm with the U of T track club now, and the coaches there tell me they look at what I was training, how I was training and stuff before my 3-hour marathon. They said, oh, they could have got me under 3 easy with more applied stuff. I was reading Runner's World and stuff and doing that kind of stuff. But they also say that the modern shoes would have got me under 2:55 maybe, just with the shoes. Can you believe it?
Yeah. Some people are still running. There's people, certainly a few famous Canadians that were at that meet in 1975 that were at the most recent Ontario and World Masters Championships. And you've been integral in all of this because of your administrative work and your photography. I can go on your website and find pictures when I ran the meets. You've taken pictures. and you are out there beginning to end, photograph of virtually every single competitor. How did your photography interest and expertise start?
I was mentored by a priest at the private high school I was going to who had written books on photography. And I got quite interested in it. And we formed a photography club at the high school. And I was the president, blah, blah, blah. And used to develop my own stuff. And I always loved photography since then. And what I like about shooting track, I don't shoot anything else but track, basically. I shoot a couple of fish in my pond and stuff like that. And I always make a point of getting everybody in the race. If there's a 1500, some of the pro photographers who are shooting for whatever they're shooting for, they'll get the top 3 guys or something. But I'll wait until the guy comes around would be me if I was in the race last, and he's coming down, and group shots, especially at the Worlds, you always take a group shot of the group. And when I always tell them to wait, there's a guy finishing, and then they get it. Oh yeah, and they all give him a big hand, and then we all have to take their group shot. So that's what I like about shooting track and cross country.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about with you because of your officiating. Let's talk about yesterday. Yesterday, you were working at a cross country meet for kids. What were the details of that?
It's the Toronto District School Board has 4 regions, north, south, east, and west, dividing up the large portion of Toronto. And we have track meets in the spring and cross-country meets in the fall. I'm the starter. I used to do the south region and the north region, but in my advanced stage, I found getting to the north region was a real pain. So I retired from that a couple of years ago. So I just do the south region, which is at Birchmount for the track and Sunnybrook for the cross country, and which is relatively easy to get to. And I'm the starter. It's a lot of fun. I remember starting kids, and they know me, who are in the Olympics. So if I had a tiny portion of contributing to their love of the sport to get them to the Olympics, then I'll take that credit. But they wanted me to finish line for swimming, but the pool's 10 meters long and everybody finishes at the same time. And it was like, what? So I only did that once, but I love the cross country. I love the track starting.
What's your longest day? Some of these times you've done it when there's a lot of races across categories. And of course, Canadian weather can be all over, especially in cross country season. You've had some long days and some days standing in the rain and the mud. How do you get through those, and how do the kids feel? What are some of the stories that happen when?
No, I'm not too bright because I'll go packing up to go to the meet in the winter. I won't take that sweatshirt. And then you're like freezing. And actually, last spring for the track, one day was so cold, I was going to have to go home. I was like going hypothermic. And the woman sitting at the laptop who had an extra parka, she gave me the parka and it saved my life. Sometimes, yeah, but the poor kids are like standing maybe on the start line, freezing to death. And I can't start till something over there finishes or the photo time is ready or something like that. So kids take the brunt of it. But yeah, just go with the conditions. A lot of fun.
Yeah, wow. It's an amazing contribution that you make, and you and the other people that are involved that do this, because as you say, the small contribution, you never know whether those kids go on to become elite athletes or just go on to appreciate physical fitness or anything. But it takes that kind of contribution. You've been doing it for so long. Let's go back to your running. Let's say in the 80s, these marathons. Where did you travel to do marathons? How far afield were you going?
Of course, I did New York and Boston and Duluth, Grandma's, but the main ones were like the Worlds. Traveling wise was going to the Worlds, which is all over the place. Twice in Finland, Sweden, France, England, Japan, Australia twice, the US, Brazil. The World Masters is just wonderful. I just go there all the time, and I don't have some good luck with my events. Having missed a flight one time because my passport wasn't working, and then I got COVID. I got COVID in Finland the day before my steeplechase. And so
Uh,
I went down really sick and sat by myself in the stands watching the steeplechase. Then I went back to bed. Not very good luck, but
you talk about having a streak of DFL in the steeplechase for decades. The men's steeplechase, as we get older, I've run it. Fortunately, the barriers do get a little lower as we hit some different age groups. What can you say about World Masters community? You're a key figure in keeping it going, participating, enthusiasm. You've started there, announced, officiated. You spend the whole day at the track meets and the thing. You're there through it all, through all these time. What can you say about the community?
well, it's a wonderful community, especially with the worlds in Canada and Ontario. You got all your friends, everybody, they know you, everybody's friends. But the worlds, you meet the same guys, like you're busier in the same age group. Once in a while, you're missed by a couple of months, but the same guys you're competing with for years and years, especially like the steeplechase, a smaller group of nuts who, like, you have to be a special mindset to run the steeple. And you see the same guys all the time. There's this Spanish guy, he's about half my size, extremely good steepler. And he doesn't speak English. So we'll see each other, big hugs, and that's just almost the reason I do it, is just that it's so much fun with the camaraderie among people from all over the world.
There was a change in Ontario with school sports development of programs and races and championships and so on. And Canada's more like Britain than, say, the States, where the running outlets, coaching, teams, organization can often be at the club level, certainly in masters. How about your involvement with the clubs? Now we have some great clubs in Toronto. There's the Toronto Club, there's Jam Can. It's open to everybody, but quite a few Jamaican athletes. What about that development? When do you, looking back, find clubs developing and having an impact on both youth and masters?
Yeah, a few years ago, we had a new administration put in Athletics Ontario, and their big push was, it's actually my coach at U of T, where I told them back in 2009, all these people are asking me, like, where's there a club in downtown Toronto? Is there a club? There's like Longboat, but they're like excellent road runners and cross country. They're not really track, but I'll look into it. So I was talking to the two guys who are now the coaches of U of T Masters. They were working out with the varsity guys at varsity. I said, why don't we have a club, form a club for masters? And then, man, it expanded into the current University of Toronto Track Club Masters division. But the point was that Paul developed this plan for most clubs don't really have a masters program or masters division. And he's telling them, look, these guys have money, they're coachable, you don't have to drive them places, all of that stuff. It's all good. It's like gravy. And they do what you tell them, except for me, when the coach tells you something. And for the last few years now, we've been trying to develop the clubs in Ontario because it's a great way to expand their revenue base, as it were. And also, we get all these people who perhaps they're parents who come out to watch their kids at an Athletics Ontario event, and they go, you mean I can do that too? That kind of thing.
Yeah. What have you had to wade through, not to make this a negative thing, but administration across all these changes of things? What has been the challenges and lessons and accomplishments of getting this over these decades, of all this different organizations? You just love it, doing the sport, photographing, helping the kids, but it's adults and there's politics and all that stuff. So how's that been?
Along the same lines, back in about 2015, we had 3 tracks in Toronto, joined by a future subway line that was going to be built. And I thought, why don't we bid for the World Championships in Toronto? And I'm talking to people, and they're going, no, you're crazy. No, I'm going, no, look. And I drew up diagrams of here's the 3 tracks and 30 minutes apart. And downtown Toronto is where the main track, like you're not out in the boonies somewhere. And we put this thing together that we spent 5 years on. We won the bid against Gothenburg, which is an IAAF stronghold. And somehow all the Europeans usually vote for a European site, and we won the bid. And then, of course, we were ready to go. And right when COVID hit in like February, March, so we pulled the plug on that. We learned a lot about politics and sponsorship and all that stuff and government grants and things like that. So that was a lot of fun. Politics-wise, we incorporated with Athletics Ontario in about 2020, and everything's going great. A lot of the stuff I used to do, like from this desk in my dining room, we were running the show. All the equipment was up in my back bedroom, all the equipment. So before a championship, I would have to go and rent a van, come back home, bring all the stuff, put it in the van, set it up, a thing, take it down, put it back in the thing. So I used to do all that, which wasn't very professional. You could see we can't keep doing it like this. So now AO, who has a staff and a storage room and all that stuff. So the staff, I'm called the meet director, meaning like, but the meet manager is actually Randolph at Athletics Ontario, who does all the work. So it works out very well. And along the same lines, the Canadian Masters is going to fold into Athletics Canada in January of this year. So Athletics Canada will be running the championships and all that kind of stuff.
Have any of the boards gone away at the lower levels as they amalgamate?
Yeah, the Ontario board became the Masters Committee. So I'm the chair of the Masters Committee, and we still have some of the same people, but a lot of really good new people. And then the Canadian board, they've already set up an Athletics Canada Masters Committee. So they've got their people, a lot of good people on there too. So I look forward to the near future of Masters in Canada. It looks good.
And what about when you're personal running and the marathoning, mainly in the 80s at your best times and best performances? Did you off ramp from that distance down to when you were track and involved? How'd that off ramping go for your distance?
I did all my like in about 89, I guess it was, or 90. I went to this supposed to be a cross country race in Sunnybrook Park, and there was a couple other guys there, and we were going, "Where's this race?" And I don't know. And then we saw these old guys. I say old guys; they're way younger than me now, and they were setting this stuff up. I go, "What's going on?" We're having a cross country race, a Masters cross country race. I go, "What's Masters mean?" And anyway, they let me run the race, and then I found out about Masters, and then it was a long time ago, and it became my life. So
with the meets, often meet director, you're doing a lot of stuff, managing equipment. Have you been able to compete? Did you have to say, okay, I'm not running this meet, I'm organizing the meet? When did that happen?
Yeah, I could do both in my youth, but whenever it was, 2005 or something, I'm guessing. Yeah, I just couldn't do both. So I would set up the meet and run the meet and do the laptop and stuff, and I didn't worry about running it.
Yeah.
But one time I tried the 300 hurdles, which is over 60. So I was entered in the 300 hurdles, which of course starts kitty corner from the laptop. So I was working the laptop, getting ready for okay, who's next? Oh, I'm in this. Hold on a second. But put my shoes on. I run across the field virtually in time for the gun to go off. So I was doing okay until that last hurdle where I realized I had nothing, and I planted my foot to go over, and I realized it was way too close to the hurdle, and then went boom, 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 but I got up and finished it. So it's not wise to do both.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Doug Smith Trophy. How did that come to be, and what is that?
Yeah, we decided to have a trophy for the winning club in both the indoor and outdoor championships in Ontario. We use in high tech, which is the results program. You can award points, whatever points you want for the top, whatever. So we did the top 7 points wise, and people have their clubs in the registration. So it's very simple to come up with. So we want to name the trophies. So the indoor trophy, we named it for Brian Keaveney, the Brian Keaveney Trophy. Brian was before me, and he's still at it, official and administrator and stuff like that. He was on the world board as the head technical guy and stuff like that. And then for the outdoors, they had an in-camera meeting, of course. I wasn't involved, and they called it the Doug Smith Trophy. So I see it once. We don't win it, so I see it once a year, and I pat it and make sure it's okay. The Jamaican Canadian International Track Club wins it all the time. They are a tremendous new club, and they have everybody in all kinds of events, and it's great.
Yeah, they do a great job online. You can join them. It's an interesting thing for amateur athletes, people that haven't competed maybe since college in an organized except for individual races, where you have to become a member of a club and you have to become a member of Athletics Ontario or Athletics Canada to compete. But you've also hosted more than Canadian meets. We have the international meets. It's a long acronym, but the North America, Central America,
NCC,
Caribbean meet. Yeah, that's a great meet. And people there from each country will obtain, they've got to wear a national uniform. So you're actually representing country. It's pretty cool.
yeah.
That came to Toronto. And how is that communication? You've got a lot of different countries coming rather than just Ontario or Canada championships.
Yeah, in 17, they were looking for a bidder because they had no bids. And I said, we'll do it, but we won't do the non-stadia stuff because the NCC meet is a big track meet, but then they want to have a road race, a road walk, and a cross country. And it's like, those are putting on like a road race and a cross country, all that stuff besides the track meet. And so we said, we'll put on a track meet. And they said, okay. So that's what we did in 17. So then in 19, which was a year before we were planning to do the Worlds in Toronto, we bid for it and we said, we'll put it on. And our plan was to use all our people, all our different, the road people, the race walk people, the cross country people, all the courses, use the same courses, the same people, and have it as a go for the next year. So we put that together. And yeah, it worked great. The people loved the 2 tracks up at York, the brand new, whatever they built the track and the Toronto track. And they loved it, how they could just walk across the plaza to whichever event they wanted to watch or be in. And yeah, so that worked out very well.
Yeah, I think I met that Spanish speaking steeplechaser who, I couldn't keep up with him either at that meet, but it was great, very international. Another thing that's interesting about Masters, we could have an Ontario or Canadian Masters Championship here, and there will be people from other countries allowed to compete.
Yeah, Europe used to just have a ban on anybody that wasn't European at their meets. That's since changed, but we've always had an open meet. A lot of Americans come up. I keep the meet records, and there are quite a few Americans in the meet record. So the meet record is the M60 100 meters. Whoever ran the fastest, they got it. It doesn't matter where you're from. So yeah, always we'll have medal wise. We'll have, of course, the top 3 Canadians win the Canadian medal. And then if an American comes second, he gets an alternate silver medal. So everybody's happy.
Yeah. What about the development in the schools for the running organization from when you got started? Have things changed? Are there more? What's the age spread that?
Yeah, there's more in the grades up to about 7. There's tons of like grade 3s and 4s and 5s, just tons of them. But it's funny that grade 7s and 8s, I'm thinking it's not cool. Maybe it's not cool to run track, or it's not cool to run. Then I think they're under a lot of pressure then. Are they a Taylor Swift fan, or what's going on? But that's just my guess. I'm not an anthropologist, but you could do a study. Like, so you ran in grade 5, 6, but you didn't run in 7. I don't know. So whatever. But the overall, I'd say there's a lot of interest in running at this age. And if we can keep them involved, if we make it a fun experience, hopefully they'll stay on with the track or any other sport. I try to instill, when my little part in it is just a life experience. Do your best. Don't elbow the other guy when you're both coming in. Stuff like a sportsmanship. Do your best. Have fun. Mainly have fun. And it seems to work.
That's great. Really appreciated all the stuff you do. And like you say, all the kids, everybody knows you and has met you and sees you year after year.
When I started the steeple in 90-ish, I noticed I never saw the event before. So I see these guys jumping over things. I'm fairly tall. I was 6'1" then. Let me give it a try. So I tried it, and about the second or third steeple, I broke the Canadian record in the M35s, right? So I can't believe it now, but I was hurdling the 36 inches, right? I go up to them now, and they seem to be here now. 7 laps, and I was hurdling them. So then in about, I think it was about the mid-50s, I started stepping on them because I found it was unsafe to be really tired and to try to get that foot up over. So I would step on them, just gliding yourself over. So I was stepping on them. And then I thought, oh, when I hit 60 and they get lower, I'll start hurdling them again. No, I couldn't hurdle them and I couldn't step on them. I was started vaulting. So I've been vaulting ever since I was 60. How about you?
Yeah, in my 60s. So I didn't have a place to train on them. So I said, I'm going to vault. And in the race, the first time I ran, I was in good shape. And I thought I can run this. It's pretty hard. I can go for 2K full out. And there was a woman maybe in the 40s who would set the Ontario Masters record in this race. So that was great because, as you say, we'll have events where there's not that many participants. So we split across, sometimes even men and women, sometimes across other age groups. So even though there may be only a few entrants in one category, you get a race. The 800 meters I ran was 60 to 64, 65 to 69, and there were some great 65-year-old 800 meters. So it was a great race to be in. And I can remember things happen when you have a meet like that. One race, a woman broke her ankle, I think, landing in the pit. Do you remember that?
I try to forget that.
Oh, yeah. All right. But we also had an Asian champion, a woman, show up and run and put on a pretty good exhibition running the steeplechase, a former women's Asian steeple champion, and all kind of great people. I want to go talk about your marathoning in the 80 and the community there and the changes. We're just out of the 70s when you were doing your main marathoning then. What was happening in the sport? Was it changing? And what were the sizes of Boston and New York when you got there? What were you seeing then?
Way less than there are now. When I remember Boston lining up, of course, you're on the little 2-lane road. And I thought, I've never seen so many people. Like, how can they possibly make this bigger? And it's, I don't know, 3 times bigger now. They have the different waves, right? And New York, I go out to that park on the other side of the bridge 3 hours beforehand. And there's like people everywhere. And you start and you don't go anywhere for 20 minutes until you can start walking and then running a bit. Now, I can't imagine what it's like now. I've got 23 marathons. I should finish my life with 25. Don't you think it would look better like Tombstone? 25 marathons?
Yeah.
How come he didn't run 25?
What's your health like? What kind of mileage could you run now?
I turned 74 just now, so I'm in my 75th year, I like to call it. Us runners, we like to make it the older age group.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually in my 75th year. I should lobby the WMA to change the rules. Anyway, I got COVID for one thing, so that set me back. It wasn't serious. I still can't smell, but that's one thing. 2 years ago, I broke my foot. I broke the fifth metatarsal, just came right apart. So I was in a boot for 6 months. So that set me back. I got vertigo. I didn't even know what vertigo was, but for a couple of days, I couldn't stand up and I couldn't run, obviously. And then all these things, when you're at my age, they seem to take a lot longer to come back from. And my coach actually said that I might not come back after the broken foot. After that much absence, you might not come back. And it's true in the way that I run. My normal route is down to the park and monkey around in the park and then come back. So it's like a mile to the park and a mile back. And then in the old days, I wouldn't even consider that. My training would be when I hit the park. I'd run for like 12 miles or something. But now, my just energy, if I have a good run, fairly good run, it's 2 or 3 days and I can't do anything. And I'll run down there and then I'll walk back. I always, in your brain though, you're going to be back. You're going to come, I'll be back. I'll always run. If I spent the rest of my life running down to the park and then running and walking back, I'd be okay. I wouldn't miss the competition. But in your brain, you're like, yeah, I'll be back. I'll feel good that day and I'll have a good run.
You've been involved in running, thinking about running now the majority of your life, from your look at 1960 and run around the block on a watch. What about competition for you? Your DFL streak at the World Masters.
It can't be touched. It's with that many DFLs. You can explain to the audience what DFL means.
Yeah.
Nobody with that many DFLs would spend the time and money to go all over the world to continue their DFL streak. But even when I was in good shape, Gates said in 99, I have a picture of the slowest. They split us into 2 heats. I think it was the 55s or something. They split us. I was in the slower heat. And the gun went off and we're coming around about 3/4 around. I've got the picture. And I'm last. And I put a big thing bubble over my, and I'm running really well. And I'm realizing the second last guy, I can't run that fast for a 3,000 meter steeplechase. You just, in your mind, you just run your race and you have a good race. You might be last.
Yeah.
Or DFL.
Yeah, we got to go back to when you set the record on one of your early races. And that's a passage we go through as our bodies change and the competition changes. And Masters is a whole different outlook on competition. We have meets and we have the fortune here of you'll run a meet. And what happens when somebody sets a world record, for example, in a field event or in a running event? How much verification and what happens in those situations where you've got to be absolutely sure you got the measurement or the timing right?
It's pretty well the same for a Canadian record. Ontario records are a little looser. You show me the result online, I'll look it up, and it's an Ontario record. The other records, yeah, you just need verification. For Canada, we went to verification from the meet director. So if the meet director says we have photo timing, blah, 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 it's a record. One thing we're stressing now, the worlds and the Canadians need a zero test. So before the meet, the starter and the finish line, the starter goes up to the finish line. He gets down on his hands and knees where the stripe is, and he holds the muzzle at the front of the stripe. And then he gets the camera guy ready and he goes, okay, zero test, and bam. And then the photo finish should be the sound of the gun, and the finish should be the same, right? Because it's right. The distance was nothing. So you'll see the photo and it'll have this like blast of the muzzle and the line, and it has to be zero. And they take a shot of that, and that proves that the zero test was done for this. And then for world records, of course, you have to get the officials to sign it. But now we use the Measure Surveyor's electronic device. where they just plant the prism, I think it is, in the ground, and then the thing just instantly tells you how far it is. So that's good enough. So but you do fill out the forms.
Do you remember when that changed, when that was first introduced in your experience?
A few years ago, maybe, I don't know, less than
Yeah.
10, when we had Ed Whitlock, Earl Fee, and Jean Horn was her name in the day, 800 meters. They were showing up at the Ontario indoors, and they all had hit the right age birthday. They were all fresh to their age group. And I knew it would be 3 world records. Contact the local media, they couldn't care less. So if, in fact, we had 3 world records in the same meet, easily predicted, because Ed and Earl and these guys would just, Earl was now planning to run, he has run world records as a 95-year-old. Basically, if he shows up at the meet, he's going to get the world record. That's how that works.
Yeah. Oh, with these changes in administration, it sounds like in Ontario, Canada, things are migrating towards more nationwide control and evolving into committees. Has that been a good thing? Can you speak about that?
Yeah, we did it in Ontario 5 years ago, and I think it's wonderful. So we have, instead of a budget of, I don't know, 20,000, the budgets, they may have millions of dollars as the budget. Yeah, I think it's fine. It's the only way to go. Now, the US, I'm not sure exactly how it worked, but they had the thing where USATF managed everything. I think the Masters Committee or the Masters Group tried to remain somewhat autonomous, something like that. But anyway, Britain had a thing where the British vets, I don't think, were too happy with British athletics. And there was a thing there. But we'll see. Give the US-Canada merger a chance, and I think it'll be wonderful. For one thing, we'll be more of a Team Canada going to the Worlds. We'll have the same outfits on. We'll have the support of a multi-million-dollar corporation, Athletics Canada. We won't be sent like the Olympians and stay in fine hotels, but we'll get a lot of support. So it should be fun.
Yeah, this is all self-funding. Are any of the Masters athletes, these guys that are still setting world records, do you know, are they sponsored?
Very few people I know, like at the world level. There's some Americans used to be sponsored a little bit. I don't think it's anything major. It's on your own dime.
Yeah, these are not events that yet are televised. What do you think about the benefit or feasibility or possibility ever of this becoming part of the actual Olympics?
Yeah, not in my lifetime. They're having flag football this year or next year, flag football and stuff. But no, I don't think age. We've had, mind you, at the track and field, international world championship track and field meets, like in Beijing that time, they had a Masters 800 for whatever it was, 50-year-olds or something. And yeah, it was a big event to us. Everybody was watching it. Hey, there's my coach. But I don't know. I don't think that would ever catch on.
Yeah, it's too bad. They certainly have a few Paralympics events. They'll have a few events during the Olympics. Before the Paralympics event, they'll schedule them a couple ahead to have that. No, I think it would be great to have a few, like you say, to do what Beijing did regularly.
Yeah.
What about your future? You've stepped back to just timing one region. You're just going to keep doing this till you can't show up at the track?
Yeah. Yeah. What else am I going to do? Anymore?
Yeah. It's you've made such amazing contributions. You've got a lot of recognition, and you're just a well-recognized guy. Let's talk about. Yeah, the hair's gone, the dreads are gone. But another thing, if people want to follow you, and they can go to what's your website? If people say, "Hey, I ran a Masters event," I'm gonna see if everybody probably knows. But what's your website called? Your photo website? Let's have.
That's shaggysPhotos.com.
Yeah, so you can go out there and see some other stuff. And at your place, you've also had some trials and tribulations with your pond and the goldfish. What's the latest on
Well,
how the pond?
all things pond is Lake Shaggy. So go on Lake Shaggy. It's a website, and it's got a bunch of stuff besides the pond on there. And yeah, I'm always developing new ways to cover the pond for the winter. I heat it all winter. So I used to put a cover and with a chalet, and you'd go in and sit down and have a coffee and watch the fish in the open water underneath. But I'm too old to build that anymore. So my new one is I'm just going to cover it with styrofoam, 2x4s to hold up the styrofoam, and then a window to keep the light, some light in all winter. And yeah.
And so you've got a bunch of
Koi.
koi. But going back, one last thing on the running, you've got memorabilia. Do you keep your memorabilia and medals and any of that stuff?
I got the medal from the Queen for my volunteering. Yeah, the medals are around. I don't win that many medals. DFL.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The Queen is Canada's part of a Commonwealth. Let's see that and here's a story about that.
What's that?
That's good. Nice.
Oh, you can't see too much, but there's a medal on there somewhere. There it is.
Yeah. So how did you find out about that?
Some people on the club found out about this Queen's Sovereign's Medal for volunteering in Canada, and they went through a long process unbeknownst to me. And the committee in Ottawa with the Governor General looked for references, and I asked, is this really true? Does this guy do all this stuff? And they said yes. So unfortunately, COVID got me again because they didn't have any ceremony. Usually you go up and visit Mary Simon, our Honorable Governor General in Ottawa, and there's that room that you're familiar with, and you get the medal from her. But unfortunately, they canceled the in-person thing. But yeah, it was a big thrill.
All right.
And now I can't say no to anybody now, see? Because I got this medal from the Queen for volunteering. You got to come on and work hard.
Yeah, you're going to say, what's the matter? You're not working anymore? You got the medal. Yeah. All right, one last thing. The shirt you're wearing, just stand up so we can see what it is. There's some news. This is happening October 9th. And last night, what happened?
The $200 million payroll Yankees lost to the $118 million Blue Jays. And their $40 million a year player, Judge, didn't really earn his 40 million. And yeah, we're thrilled. We last won the World Series a couple of times in 92 and 93, I think. So this team looks really good, and we love beating the Americans.
All right. There'll be a lot of Americans listening to this, and they can get upset at that and see your smiling face and say, well, we'll see what happens. Yeah. So, Toronto's the division series winner, and they'll be playing somebody for the league championship starting Sunday night. So you're a big fan of that, a big supporter. And like you said, you really did all that stuff. And it's great to talk with you and hear a little bit about your reflections. Thanks for your time, Shaggy. And
Thank you,
I'll encourage everybody to go out to your websites, check out especially the photos, and also Lake Shaggy if they want to see what's going on there with the koi. But the photos are great, and anybody that knows somebody who's in Master Shark and it's gone, they can track them down there. It's fun. Great photos. You're a skilled photographer, and you make everything available. And
we'll see them in Daegu next year.
Yeah. People are free to download as long as they credit with you. The photos are all free. It's just another example of all the stuff you do that is great for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Matthew.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed another episode. Do you have someone you'd like to hear interviewed on the podcast? You can leave a comment on the YouTube channel or on the website, running70s.com. That's running70s.com. Let me know what you think of the episodes and anyone, including yourself, you'd like to hear interviewed.
I hope you enjoyed another episode of Running in the 70s. Voices, stories, and memories of athletes who were running in the 70s. Until next time, wherever you are, keep looking forward and don't forget to look back.